So, you've created something special both harmonically and melodically. It's your musical masterpiece, and now's the time to add vocals. So you turn on your computer, pull out your phone, or even grab a piece of paper and a pen, and you suddenly think, what am I going to say? Well, let's talk about that, shall we? Tribe of names. Hello there, my name is Simon Godfrey and I'm a professional musician who has spent the past 35 years working in and sometimes around the recording music industry, writing and performing. On this channel we provide tips, tricks and gear reviews for the inspired and creative songwriter and musician in you. Now I know you've probably heard it a million times before, but we really do sincerely ask you to consider subscribing and clicking on that like button, as it helps us to reach more musicians like yourself who might be interested in the kind of content we're creating on this channel. And finally, please consider clicking on the bell icon if you haven't already, as it will allow you to be informed of any new content we have coming out. Well then, when it comes to writing words and combining them with music, if you're a hip hop or R&B artist, there are a lot of channels out there who will provide you with tips and tricks on how to do just that. But when it comes to rock and guitar based genres, the number of resources that you have out there seems to be considerably smaller. In this series I will be talking to several notable vocalists and lyricists that I've encountered during my career and ask them how they go about putting words to music. In addition, I will try and provide you with as much information as I possibly can on the art of writing lyrics and combining them with the music that you and your band members write. So in this first episode I thought I'd introduce you to my long-term collaborator, a gentleman called Robert Ramsey, who has been a lyricist for the past 20 years and has collaborated with me on the vast majority of the projects that I have released. While Robert is still back in the UK, and of course I'm here in Philadelphia, I was very lucky to catch up with Robert a couple of days ago via Zoom and talk to him about the techniques that he employs to put words to my music. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is my conversation with lyricist Robert Ramsey. Hello everybody, my name is Simon Godfrey and I am talking today with my long-term co-writer. We've been working together how many years I think it is now, but this is Robert Ramsey, and as you know from the introduction, he and I have been working for an awful long time, and so I just wanted to ask Rob a couple of questions from your point of view as to how you go about writing lyrics when it comes to music and sort of like spoken word pieces and the like. Let's do this in a sort of linear basis. I mean, do you remember like the first time you started to write lyrics and how that came about?
That's a good question, actually. I'm pretty sure that the first I used to write poems when I was like, well, actually, since I was a small child, but they weren't very good then, of course. But no, I think the first lyrics I actually wrote were for you.
Okay. So what were they?
I didn't have any music before then.
I was going to say, so would that have been the Men Are Dead days back in the 90s?
Oh yes.
Herein lies actually sort of like, and this leads on to another question, which is like, what motivates you to write? And of course, you just spoke about the fact that you were offered the opportunity to write for a project back in the 90s where you and I that was really how you and I first started working together. But what motivated you and still motivates you to write a lyric?
Sometimes these things just come out of your head. Well, they won't stay in your head and they have to go out onto the paper. I get that. And I mean, as I said, that was about poems. I'd have an idea and I'd kind of have to write it out, really, and then see how it went. I was, of course, tempted to say money, but we all know there's no money in this.
Yeah, unless you're Bernie Taupin.
Ah, yes.
Well, in that case, I mean, let's get down to specifics really here. And I know that you, from previous experience of chatting to you about this, you have some sort of clear outlines and views on this matter, which is how important is meaning when it comes to ascribing lyrics. And the reason why I may mention is that you and I have often talked about the different kinds of ways that lyricists enter. Like, for example, John Anderson of Yes has a very sort of nebulous way of using lyrics pretty much to round out the sounds of the things that he's singing, whereas you go to someone like I don't know, sort of Peter Gabriel or Björk, they go in the completely opposite direction, which is that they ascribe great meaning to their lyrics but are very cagey about explaining it to people.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I actually did John Anderson a disservice when I first started listening to him, because I did, I did listen to it and think this is complete rubbish. I mean, you know, from a lyrical point of view, I meant. But then, as I say, as I've come on in years, I've discovered that John Anderson has a fabulous way of, there's meaning kind of hovering at the edge of what he's doing. It's like you're outside of a huge sort of like bush, and you're circling around this bush, and somewhere in the bush there is some meaning, and every so often you see a little bit of the meaning come out of the bush, and you chase around after it, but no, it's moved around the other side. But yeah, no, as I say, I do like the almost meaning bits that John Anderson produces. Now, I'm so sorry for slacking you off when I was much younger, John.
So when it comes to meaning for you, how do you actually inject the lyrics that you write with the appropriate amount of meaning?
When I first listen to the music, I think, how does this music make me feel? And then from then, I sort of like work out what sort of person would I be in the sort of song that makes me feel like this, if you see what I mean. I mean, yes, if I've got a theme, or something to actually write about beforehand, then I have to kind of like put myself into the person, because like that Theseus and the Minotaur thing I did for you. Like I say, you said Theseus and the Minotaur, so I'm like, okay, so what would it be like being Theseus? And that was how I wrote it. And then once you've got a mindset of a character or a situation, as Alan Moore once said about V for Vendetta, you just sit back and let everybody do their bit, and then just write down all the things they say and do.
Yeah, I understand.
No, I know it's a bit like the old joke about how do you make a statue of an elephant, where you get a big block of stone and you carve away all the bits that don't look like an elephant.
Well, that actually brings me round to something which I think is also quite apposite in this instance, which is, do you find yourself returning to certain topics or themes again and again?
Yeah, I mean, because I feel that usually once I've written a song about a thing, I've got it out of my system. And it's like, I know this sounds terrible, but I think quite a lot about the end of the world. But many years ago, I did the lyrics for All Hands Lost. And that kind of, certainly as far as the lyric writing was concerned, that kind of got that out of my system.
Do you find when it comes to lyric writing, you're looking over the shoulder of the people in the story, or are you trying to see it from the person who's experiencing the tale you're trying to tell?
It just depends on what happens. Because I mean, for example, The Big Red Spark is written in third person because it's telling a story about a thing. There's not one person that you're going to have as a protagonist, but something like Wide Awake at Midnight is a person's personal experience, whatever it might be.
Do you go in with a structure in mind, or are you literally doing the old J.R.R. Tolkien thing and just going in and seeing how it turns out?
Well, luckily, when I've been working with you, you've already given me a structure, because you go blah-de blah-de blah where the words would normally go in the right sort of syllable. So I've got a structure already most of the time. I mean, it's very rarely that I depart from that structure, because I think I've written something that will still fit in with the tune, even if it's not something that you've actually explicitly done in so many syllables, but not very often.
What about in terms of structuring a story? I mean, I know that in some instances you and I have worked in terms of, like, for example, the album Shineback and an album called Rise Up, Forgotten, Return Destroyed, where you and I structured a story out over an entire record as opposed to a single song. Was that something that that you had to do an awful lot of particular preparation for, or was it something that you were sort of like making up on the fly?
Well, like I say, they always talk about there's two different types of authors. There's plotters and pantsers. The plotter works it all out in advance, like Stephen King, and the pantsers just write.
And I'm assuming when you say pantsers, you're talking about
by the seat of the pants. And yeah, you might have to end up rewriting a bunch of stuff, but I've never really been a plotter. I might have the odd idea of where something is going, but how I get there, I find out at the time.
So what kind of techniques do you normally employ in order to write a lyric?
Well, normally I listen to the tune a few times, and as I said, I try and work out how it makes me feel, and then I try and work out some words that will fit in for the first couple of lines or whatever, and see where that takes me. Sometimes the nonsense singing that you've put on as a guide vocal, sometimes I can hear the odd sort of word in there, and sometimes that word actually inspires me.
But I mean, when you were sort of just starting out as a lyricist, were there any people that were inspiring you in the ways that they wrote or the subject matters in which they tackled lyrically?
Well, as I say, I think definitely Elvis Costello was one of them, because, as I said, you listen to his stuff and it's like, it's got amazing tunes, it's got amazing lyrics, it's basically just amazing. The fact that you could be quite thoughtful in a song inspired me from him.
What about artists? Because I know that you've mentioned in the past that artists like Peter Blegvad have meant a lot to you over the years.
Oh yes. I think actually, yeah. I guess that I'm in much more of the same ballpark as Peter Blegvad, because, as I say, yeah, he writes songs about strange things, and I like writing songs about strange things. So maybe that is one of my recurring themes: strange things.
All right. Is there anything else at all you'd like to sort of like make mention when it comes to lyric writing for people out there who are just starting out as lyricists, and any advice that you might have to give to a newbie lyricist who wants to create something which resonates with listeners and works with a tune?
Oh, well, that's easy. Just write. Don't think about it. Just write, because writing is so much more difficult than editing. If you write a bunch of stuff, you'll have plenty of time afterwards to work out whether any of it was any good. But the writing, the actual getting it down on paper or computer or whatever, that's the most important thing. Just write without trying to shut up that little voice in the back of your head that goes, "It's not any good."
Yeah.
Because if you listen to that voice, you'll never get anything done.
Lyricist Robert Ramsay there. We've been working, as I said, for probably well over 20 years now, so it's a very easy and understanding working relationship. And again, I'd like to thank him very much for taking the time out to speak to us about his thoughts on lyric writing. Well then, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for watching through to the end of the video. It is very much appreciated. And again, if you like what you see, please consider subscribing. It would really help us a lot. So until next time, this is Simon saying Tribe of Names. Have a good week. Goodbye.